this edition of Silicon Grapevine. My guest today is Ramin Shirani, who's the CEO of Ethernovia. Hello, Ramin.
Hi there, Nitin. Very nice to talk to you.
So, Ramin, we're going to talk a little bit about your journey before you founded Ethernovia. So, tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry, or maybe just back from that. I think your family came in the 70s from Iran, and then you had quite a sort of interesting journey from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nice to be on your show. I came here when I was 14 with my family. We had a comfortable life back home, but we came right before the Iranian Revolution. And unfortunately, we had to start from scratch. So I used to, at 14 or 15 years old, I used to deliver pizzas and, to Thermat to try to basically have enough money to, make the ends meet. I went to high school in San Francisco, college in San Mateo, and then I did most of my schooling at UC San Diego. But throughout the whole journey, kind of working and going to school at the same time. Started from scratch and then finished school. Got my first job at National Semiconductor back in 1987. And frankly,
that was a year after me. I was at National Semiconductor.
I think everyone at some point has gone through National. At some point, it used to be called National University. So you go there, you learn, you grow, and then they've had a lot to do with their success of the industry. So that's where I started.
And what got you into electronics? Or you're in networking now, but what got you into this? Thinking that you wanted to study this, or is it just by chance you wanted to study something and you picked this?
Yeah. So ever since I was a kid, I was always interested in solving puzzles. Back home, I had a tool chest of different electronics, building small, machines or robots or what have you. So I knew deep in my heart, I absolutely wanted to be an engineer. Wasn't sure what. Frankly, Luckily, I stumbled across electrical engineering, and in retrospect, it was the best decision I've ever made.
Okay. And did you major in anything in particular while you were studying? I guess networking became your thing because that's what you've built your businesses on.
That's right. So I majored in electrical engineering, but when I started at National Semiconductor, they were in the forefront of Ethernet and
Correct.
networking Ethernet. And, I was recruited to do networking chips for National. The first one was Sonic, which is still probably being used in some devices. And then, fast forward 30, 35 years later, Ethernet is really the dominant force in the industry. And again, part of it is planning, part of it is luck, and being there at the right time and coming across Ethernet. But to be honest with you, you get the opportunity, but it's all about just persevering and pushing forward. And that's exactly what I did. At least the first 10 years of my life, I used to work 16-hour days at National, and I was just soaking everything up, right? I didn't care if I'm a digital engineer, analog engineer, product test, go to, customer meetings, really that hunger of learning and growing, kind of continuation of school, but on an accelerated path. And that's what really got me into where I am today.
So how long was your stint at National? I mean, it sounds like you had quite a good grounding there.
Absolutely. So I was at National for 9 years. It was the heydays of Ethernet at National. National was doing 10 meg Ethernet. Then I got involved and I helped them take it to 100 meg and higher speeds. And at some point, right before I left National in 1996, National had 95% market win in max and Ethernet physical layers. They had about, if I recall, $400-500 million worth of revenue. So was quite, and I was part of it. I didn't, I was one of the key engineers and managers to make it happen, but it was very satisfying and it gave me the basis to what I end up doing for the rest of my career.
Right. And so, did you leave by choice? Did you have an idea and you said you wanted to sort of start something on your own, or what was the trigger?
Yeah, absolutely right. I remember, we all live in Silicon Valley, right? I mean, you learn, you grow, you always kind of think, hey, I can do something on my own. I can do it better. I can do it faster. So that's exactly what happened, right? Right about
Mm.
1995, myself and a few of my friends, we thought about, hey, what if we go do the next generation? What if we do it in this different manner? But frankly, to get going from a comfortable, paycheck coming from a big company to completely not knowing where the paycheck comes from, where the funding comes from, and at that age, right, fundraising was extremely foreign to us. So, uh, so it really took a year to get the courage to even go start looking for funding or looking for opportunities. But frankly, it was at a very opportune time for the transition of 10 meg Ethernet to 100 meg Ethernet, and
Right.
it wasn't very difficult to try to raise funds, and we did that in conjunction with another gentleman, Robert Shen, and we started Enable Semiconductor in 1996.
That's right. I mean, that was just in the sort of early days of the dot-com boom days, and everything was getting very bubbly by then, late 90s with the money, I guess. So it must have been, although it was new for you, it must have been sort of quite a good roller coaster for you.
It was, yeah. We we raised the fund in 1996. We delivered product in 98, and we all starting in 98, right, 2 years into the company, we had multiple suitors
Hmm.
for acquisition of the company, and that's exactly what happened. In 1999, the company was acquired by Lucent Microelectronics,
Yeah.
and it was a rather, short 2-3 years, but it led to a successful acquisition.
Yeah. I mean, that was just before the crash. So I think the timing was good as well in terms of valuation.
That's right. That's right. Right. So we had a good acquisition, and in Lucent, uh, I was promoted. We were kind of the fresh blood going into Lucent. Lucent was kind of an older, AT&T Lucent
Yeah.
environment,
Yeah.
and I was promoted to be the VPGM of physical layer products. I was running a 200-man team. I was given $150 million profit and loss. It was quite a bit of transition from a hands-on analog digital design engineer 3 years before to actually running a business. So it was extremely satisfying. I was on a very fast pace of learning, right? It's not just about technology. It's not just about, customers. Now it's about business. Now it's about making profit. Now it's about hiring people, growing, and just I can't tell you enough about how much I learned during those number of years.
Right. And then I guess, that's actually the grounding for your next startup. Although, did you have a break in between, or, I mean,
I
you
had a break
basically,
in between, and I tried a few miscellaneous things, but exactly in 2001, I had this deep desire to go do the next startup in a much bigger way.
mm,
And frankly, 2001 was one of the worst time in the history to raise money. If you remember, it was post
yes.
crash, and there was post 9/11 or about 9/11.
Yep.
So right about end of 2001, right, I started tapping into some of my own fund, and
Okay.
I started hiring contractors, looking at business cases, traveling. And one thing that I want to tell you about again is probably from 2001 to 2004, not to exaggerate, but I heard no less than 100 no's from VCs and from corporate investors. And
Yeah.
it's like, why
Mm.
would we want to invest, right? I mean, but I never gave up, right? I mean, I had that deep desire, almost to the point, if I want to leave you with something, almost to the point of healthy arrogance, right? I mean,
Right.
arrogance is bad, right? I'm not promoting it at all,
Yeah.
but you almost have to believe in yourself so much and in your vision and in your mission that it becomes something you gotta accomplish. And over that 3 years of hearing multiple no's, I grew, right, and I learned to be more resilient, and I went through the pain and suffering of what builds character. And
Exactly.
fortunately, in 2005, we got seed funding from Greylock Ventures. A very good friend of mine, Eric O'Brien, gave
Yeah.
us the seed funding, and that's when the next company started.
Well, I mean, before I go to that, that's the next. You said you wanted to start something big, and the next company was big. But just coming back to that 2001 to 2004-5 period, um, I do remember because I'd started a publication called The Chili, which was basically looking at that whole semiconductor tech investor environment, and yeah, it was the thing we kept hearing all the time was, yeah, there's no money, the money's dried up, etc. And yeah, for the chip sector anyway. So I think that was a really tough time. So I can believe those 100 no's. But yeah, then you went on. What was the sort of concept that you had with the Quantra? Because it sort of grew into something which that you had a big exit. But tell us a little bit about the concept. Yeah, what was your thinking?
Yeah. My background from before was Ethernet. And prior to that, I've done 10 meg and 100 meg Ethernet with fairly good success in the marketplace. Gigabit at the time in 2005 was still 2004-5 was commonplace. And the next forefront was running 10 gig on twisted pair for data center and enterprise. So really, it was kind of taking it to the next level. But frankly, going from 100 to 1,000 to 10 gig in the process technology, CMOS process technologies that TSMC was offering back in 2004, 2005 was extremely difficult. I remember going to standards committees for 10 gig, and there were talks that, hey, it's being defined in IEEE standards. That's where Ethernet standards are being defined. But then it's really science fiction, right? I heard so many talks about you're so close to what's called the Shannon limit, right?
Yes,
From in the capacity of the channel, that this is science fiction. Don't try it. But that's exactly what we look for, right? I mean, you want to have tough problems to solve. You want to differentiate by being able to solve it in the most elegant way. And then if the market is there, right, it's very difficult to try to go start a market from scratch. It can be done.
exactly.
But if the
Yeah.
market is there and you go after a hard problem and you solve it in an elegant way, then you will succeed. So that's exactly what we did. We went after 10G base T, physical layer, and kind of layer one, layer two of the OSI stack.
What were your biggest challenges in sort of, I guess, was it a technological challenge or was it a cultural or business challenge? What in sort of building the Quantra?
Yeah. So at the time, the the 10G base T was tough technology. It was a very good and evolving market. Frankly, when we started back in 2005, there was no less than 9 different companies going after it, right? Big companies, small companies. There was Marvell, there was Broadcom, there was Level One, and as a minimum, another 7 startups. So really, kind of getting the attention and the focus of the investors, the customers, and then being able to recruit, right? Because it's now you have 9 companies going after the same, and a lot of them are
Yeah.
promising, at least, hey, I can do this and I can do it better. So really was one of the biggest challenges was how do you differentiate and how do you do it faster and how do you get to market quicker and how do you make this science fiction a reality? So, you start with an idea, and I know this is said by others too, but you always start with an idea and you start with a market focus and you think, okay, fine, I'm going to go execute. But the reality of it is there's going to be, 1,000 different pivots that you
Yeah.
do. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you go after something completely different, but
Yeah.
the challenge and the and the meat of the problem has to do with going and taking the idea and then figuring out how to go from A to B. I remember talking to this one VC, and he made a good analogy. He said, "Hey, listen, it's like going up a tree, right? You go from one small branch, hoping it doesn't break, to another small branch, to another
Mm.
small branch, one day at a time, a week at a time to try to get to the top." So the process of, maturing through that or building character for the company, pivoting, that's what entrepreneurs do. It's not just about a good business idea or technology idea, right? It's really
Yeah.
about the resilience to go from A to B, knowing that it's going to be very difficult and 20,000 different pivots.
Well, I think that's what I mean in my career, both working with and talking to technology entrepreneurs. It's always about the other side, the commercial side, not the technology side. Commercial marketing, the business, the market. So I think absolutely right what you're saying. I think it's very challenging from that respect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Where was the point where it became successful, and then sort of you said, okay, well, what's next?
Throughout my career, I've built a lot of relationships, and these relationships always come handy, right? Again, through my career in national, through, what I've done, by fundraising or consulting or being advisor to other people. I've established, I'm going back now to 2005, and I want to tell you why we succeeded as a Quantia. And part of that relationship was with Intel, right? I
Mm.
had deep technical and friends relationship in Intel. And I remember back in 2007, I went to Intel and I said, hey, we have the 10G-based technology, and we want to integrate it with your media access controller. Now, at the time, Intel is the king of the hill processors. It wasn't for those relationships. It would be very difficult to try to get into Intel. But once, obviously we have to prove we have the technology. We had to have no less than a year of meetings back and forth. But really, what a major pivot for the company was the fact that we took our 10G-based technology and we integrated it with Intel NAC, a product which is still shipping. I was Googling the other day, X540 and X550 of Intel. And that completely changed the prospects of the company because now you had the number one NIC supplier in the planet, using your technology. And once we did that, right about 2011-ish timeframe or thereabout, Intel started shipping their Mac with our physical layer, and then the revenue started ramping rather rapidly,
Right.
which is part the reason we succeeded and the other 7 startups didn't.
Interesting. And then so then there was an exit. So tell us a little bit about that, and then the birth of Ethernovia.
So the company went through uh, the production aspects of making 10G-based T, diversifying into other products. Right, you generally start at the bottom of the OSI stack. At least my experience with very tough technology like a physical layer, a mixed signal, high barrier to entry, and then you go up doing the max and what have you. So we diversified into a number of other products in 2014, 15, 16. Revenue started coming in a very strong and healthy way. And in November 2017, myself, my co-founders, and the rest of the company, we took the company IPO in New York Stock Exchange in November 2017. And it was an amazing, amazing experience, right? Being there at New York Stock Exchange, kind of seeing the actual bell, right?
Yeah.
You're on the podium, there's no actual bell that you ring. That's an automatic bell that rings. But yeah, it was quite satisfying for myself, my team, the rest of the company, and our other executives.
And what was the valuation at that time?
The valuation at the time of IPO was about 500 million, right? Which
yeah.
back then for a company focused on physical layer, frankly, was a pretty decent valuation.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. So yes, then what next? I think how did you sort of get to this? What was the idea, the concept with Ethernovia?
So when we were at Quantia, we saw significant need in the automotive space for Ethernet. And in fact, we had the focus of Quantia was data center, enterprise. We have customers, we have big customers, Intel, Cisco, what have you. And automotive was a tangential focus for us, even though the core technology of Ethernet is very applicable to automotive. And at some point in 2018, I independently left. Some of my other colleagues at the Quantia, we independently left, and we kind of brainstormed on, hey, what's there to do with the core capabilities of Ethernet chip design that we have for the automotive space? And sure enough, we said, hey, let's just start the company, right? We know directionally this makes sense. We don't know exactly what we're going to build, right? But Ethernet, whatever Ethernet touches wins. So I incorporated the company in the, about April, May of 2018. And then I had a few other colleagues join. We didn't raise funds at the beginning. We used our own funds, right? The actual seed funding came from us. And we took a year, right? An entire year to try to figure out exactly what we want to go do, right? It wasn't about going and doing the next fastest gadget. It wasn't about doing the next chip like we've done, frankly, before. It was about figuring out what the pain points are in the automotive and how can we solve these pain points in a way that's not a point solution. It's in a way that it's not just a PHY play, not just a Mac play, not just a software play. So after a year of talking to customers, the likes of, European customers and North America and Southeast Asia, we realized that there is a fundamental gap, right, in the network of the car, as it's very complicated. A mid-class car can have 80, 90 different networks that don't talk to each other. 120 to 180 different electronic control units, 200 different software suppliers. So we said we're going to go focus on solving this problem at the basis of it with an end-to-end solution, which contains a roadmap of chips, but also software. So that's really kind of the real development started in 2019, and the seed funding came from us.
And what was the Ethernet? What's the proposition? What's your sort of
So what we do is we fundamentally evolve the in-vehicle networks, right? If you look at a car on the street today, which was manufactured a few years ago, it has as I mentioned earlier, it has 80 different networks. It has most CAN, FlexRay, some Ethernet, some LVDS. A lot of these networks don't talk to each other. But there is this, it's more of a buzzword, but it's true. There's so much push right now towards software-defined vehicles.
Yes.
And for a vehicle to be truly software-defined and programmable, the network of the car needs to be super sophisticated, almost to the point of sophistication of what you see in data center in the cloud, but in a scaled version with security and functional safety for the car. And our value proposition is that we fundamentally change the networks, the in-vehicle network wire of the car, so that you have a consolidated network. So any point in the car, any sensor to any display to any CPU can talk uh, through an Ethernet backbone in a way that is a stepping stone. We don't fundamentally believe that the entire network of the car is going to change. Nobody has a fresh sheet of paper. Maybe electric car makers do, but generally there's a lot of legacy that comes with the network of the car. And we kind of build on that legacy network, and we create a set of chips and software that connect the sensors of the car, these being the radar, the lidar, the
Yep.
sonar, the cameras, to the CPU and the GPU of the car. So we're not the sensors, we're not the CPU or the GPU, but we're everything in between, being the nervous system of the car.
Interesting. So what's your vision now? What's next for you with Ethernovia?
So we have, as you may have seen with some of our press releases, we have uh, announced our first set of products, which are physical layer 10G based T1, 802.3ch, which runs on a single pair wire. It's a
Mm.
fundamental building block that is developed in 7 nanometer TSMC. Uh, why is 7 important? Why is, fine FinFET geometries are important is power consumption and
Yep.
abilities to integrate. So we've already introduced in the marketplace a single port and a quad port shortly. And as we kind of move forward, we're gonna fulfill that end-to-end vision with a set of switches, network processors, and accelerators with the software. So effectively, the next generation vehicles can now function more as a homogeneous fabric of the network does in the data center and in the cloud.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. Well, good luck on that. And tell us a little bit about some of your achievements in life, both personal and professional. What do you feel you've done which you're really proud of personally?
So, you know, on a professional level, obviously having done multiple companies and to a great extent, most of them being very successful. But the one thing that I take the most pride in has to do with the fact that as a young engineer back in 1992, I was sitting at National Semiconductor and thinking about Ethernet evolution. And it was obvious to me that as the Ethernet evolves from 10 meg to 100 meg to higher speeds, you need to have a protocol of it's called out of band protocol of negotiation prior to establishing the actual speed on the wire. And I thought about what's called auto negotiation. And auto negotiation, every time you have a RJ45 and a cable and you plug it in, the first thing that happens is there is an out of band language that's being, communicated across the wire to try to figure out what the capabilities are. This is called auto negotiation.
Okay.
And it went actually, I patented it in 1992 for National Semiconductor. It was adopted by IEEE as the auto negotiation preferred methodology for Ethernet. And over the past 30 years, it's made it into billions of devices. So any computer, server, this and that, anything that has a RJ45, the initial language, even though the eventual language is Ethernet, the initial language is auto negotiation, which is something that kind of as a young engineer sitting in a room at National, I thought about, and I look at how one individual can have such a huge impact, right? And I take a lot of pride in that, in what was accomplished. It's not my patent, and the patent is not public domain, but it was a major accomplishment for Ethernet and success of Ethernet.
Okay. And I mean, with all of this sort of entrepreneurial activity and technological achievement, do you get any time for any personal hobbies and things like that? What do you do? in your spare time?
No, absolutely, absolutely. I spend a lot of time with my family. I was so focused, right or wrong. I'm not necessarily promoting it at all. In fact, the opposite. But I started, having children late, and I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I spend quite a bit of time with them. I'm at a point in my life that I realize the importance of spending quality cycle, right? Work will always be there. Entrepreneurship will always be there. Work is for us, for entrepreneurs, work is almost like an addiction, right? It's just
Yeah,
like work, work, work. But then, really spending time with family, with my children, traveling with my wife. So that's a very big part of my life. And my younger son plays soccer, and I've taken a very deep liking of soccer. I used to
good.
play soccer, so I try to be very active in his soccer practices and training. Like for example, this summer I'm going to take him to England to train with, in a camp with Chelsea. So
Oh wow, okay.
so yeah, yeah. So really, it's about the family and my children. Then I do weightlifting and I enjoy it. So I try to eat healthy and stay in shape.
Well, I don't know if you go to your England for soccer, you may even get to the Euro Championships.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It, absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. That would be awesome.
Well, yeah, I think one of the major Chinese EV manufacturers is a key sponsor there as well.
Well, that's music to my ear. That's awesome. I
Yeah, I
can do
met
some
them.
business too.
Yeah, yeah. So, and what about do you feel you've had a sort of any key people who have influenced you in life, like mentors or anything like that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. We all have, right? I mean, we all learn from. I mean, there's the you organically grow, but you kind of learn from people. So I've had the opportunity a few times to talk to. I'm not friends with him, but he knows me, and we've had enough, opportunities to talk. But with Bob Metcalf, and Bob Metcalf is the founder of Ethernet. And in
Yes.
fact,
Yeah.
I was in Brazil late last year, and Ethernovia was presenting. And again, I had the opportunity to talk to him. Every time I look at this gentleman, right, and
Yeah.
what he is accomplished, I'm telling you, at where he is in his life and his accomplishments, he was sitting in Brazil in these meetings and looking at these presentations and providing constructive feedback, and
Mm.
it's just so aspiring, right? That's
That's
so
yeah.
he's definitely for me a
Mm.
amazing role model. And again, throughout my career, there have been many other advisors. I do have other advisors on the board who've been EVPs of Cisco, and they've had companies take an IPO or have been venture capitalists. And it's always good to, as I said, it's also about relationships, right?
Mm.
And keeping a network, and then keeping an open mind. This is very important. Keeping an open mind, not to get to the point of thinking that you know it all, right? There is always anybody, I don't care who the person is, anybody at any point of their life, they can still learn and grow. They
Yep.
got to keep an open mind. And I have a rich set of, advisors to my board and my personal life also, that I always, enjoy talking to, learning and growing and discussing.
Well, great. Well, I'm going to ask you the last question, Ramin, as before we sign off. So, what would you tell a young Ramin, or what would be the advice you give to youngsters based on what you've learned in life?
Being an entrepreneur is not easy, and it's not for everyone, right? As you start with thinking that you can do it, but when you get into it, you realize it's 1,000 times more difficult, right? So it's a very tedious journey. But if you have the deep belief in your heart that you can get there, then you need to prepare yourself, right, to be diversified, right? It's not just about technology. It's not about market. It's not about customers. It's not about standards. You got to be able to become almost a jack of all trades in different disciplines. And what I call establish, I kind of mentioned this to some of my colleagues, is you really need to establish a compass in your heart, right? That's very important. Takes time. Nobody has it from day one, right? Establish a compass in your heart. You will never have all the information to make decisions, right? You'll have 80%, 70%, 50%. But having a compass in your heart by being diversified in your knowledge and in your skills. And then very, very, very important, what I can tell you is bring in people, put your ego aside, bring in people to the company that in certain areas are better than yourself.
Excellent.
You
Exactly.
don't want to be the know-it-all sitting there trying to solve everything. You
Yep.
really need to bring in people who are better than yourself. You empower them, and then you get out of their way.
Great. Well, Ramin, thank you very much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Very nice talking to you, and I enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.